Hello, welcome back to Factually Fictitious for the first time. Today we're talking about fascism. Light subject, I know. In this essay I will be speaking critically about some popular anime, some you may like. I'm not judging or condemning anyone. I think the anime fandom is a wonderful place, all things considered, and that fans of anime have something really special to offer their communities. But we must all be vigilant, so that we don't get led astray by people seeking to take advantage of us and our fandom. So, let's start out with an uncomfortable little question. Do you think you could be a fascist? It couldn't happen here, right? Major spoilers for Fullmetal Alchemist, Attack on Titan, the saga of Tanya the Evil, Girls und Panzer, and Hetalia. And content warning for fascism, Nazism, anti-Semitism, and genocide. When I was little, I'd seen some anime. Totoro, Pokemon, and stuff on Toonami. I really got into it in high school, which is when my studies were coming to be more focused on history and warfare, so naturally I really got into Fullmetal Alchemist. Brotherhood and the manga are very well researched. There's so much in there from history to, well, alchemy. In the story, we see a military state known as Mestris, one with intentional parallels to Nazi Germany. The country of Mestris has been at war pretty much constantly since the day it was first founded. Gee, what does that remind me of? So, the protagonist is Edward Elric, a scientist in the military. He's technically a major, and many of his friends and allies are soldiers who have carried out genocide on the orders of their Führer. Sounds bad, right? This anime must surely be glorifying fascism. Well, no. The story is critical of the military and its crimes constantly. Ed can't take a step outside without being called a dog in the military. The antagonists are either officials in the military state or puppet masters guiding it toward their own ends. Alchemy is a wondrous thing, which some nations use for medical purposes. In Mestris, it's primarily used as a weapon or as a military asset in an industrial capacity. State alchemists are living weapons of immense power, unknowingly working toward the genocide of their own nation in a death ritual to make Father, the founder of their nation and their school of alchemy, into a literal god. Fascism is a core element of this conspiracy. So, let's define it. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political philosophy. It's opposed to democracy and focuses power under a dictator. Fascism works by distracting the people with spectacle and propaganda to make them forget what they really want, like ending an economic depression. It's really just a pyramid scheme that requires constant warfare to stay afloat, whether against foreign nations, domestic minorities, or your own citizens in general. You know, like America. A Mestris. Like a Mestris. Some people in the real world really like this. They like the rigorously enforced order, the license to stop thinking critically and just follow orders, the opportunity to not give a crap about other people and to just hurt others for their own advancement or even just for fun. The members of the fascist military in Fullmetal Alchemist must surely be like this. Well, the antagonistic ones are Ed's friends, Mustang, Hawkeye, Hughes, Armstrong, Havoc. They're a little different. They hate the state of the military and seek to change the nation for the better. They didn't decide to commit genocide, they were just following orders. But in a subversion for how we always hear that line used, they aren't using it as an excuse. They don't care if it was their fault or not, they still followed the orders. Armstrong stopped after one attack on civilians and it stunted his career. Mustang, Hawkeye, and Hughes continued to just follow orders, and it earned them promotions. And they are haunted to the present day by their crimes. It is a source of great shame for them. The just world they seek to build would try them as criminals rather than celebrate them as heroes, and that is their greatest ambition. The story does not excuse or justify their criminal actions, and in the process, it avoids whitewashing militarism and fascism. In this show, we are asked to sympathize with fascists, with people who essentially are light Nazis. Set in a fictional world, we don't have the same gut reaction we would to knowing that these people are basically soldiers in the Wehrmacht from the get-go. We would see Nazis as monsters right away. Fascism is a dangerous thing in Mestris, but the citizenry is just ordinary people whose complacency allows the military to commit its atrocities against other nations, and even against them, whenever some cross-section of them is made out to be a minority to be purged. The fascist soldiers in the military are people with hopes, dreams, and families. We see a horror of fascism here. Ordinary people can do monstrous things. The villains, such as Father, may be supernatural, but there isn't some supernatural evil in the hearts of these people, in the hearts of the soldiers and civilians. They're just ordinary people going about their lives, taking part in a society that treats human lives as resources and minorities as prime targets for extermination and sacrifice. Father isn't quite supernatural within the world of the story, as alchemy is seen more as a science in their world. He's supernatural to us. His ambition in the series is to seize the power and place of God, known as truth or the universe in this setting. He represents the existential question of contending with God, the pursuit of power, and the natural ends of the pursuit of power. Father doesn't see the humans he has killed as real people. Killing them is just a means to achieve his own ends. And at the top of a nation like Amestris, he rarely has to get his hands personally dirty. Thousands or millions of dead, marginalized people are just numbers to him. The architect of this state, he has opted to groom the government as a fascist military junta. Fascism is an essential part of the world built in FMA. The setting doesn't work without it. The more moral and intellectual characters that we get to know, such as Ed and Al's teacher and their grandmother figure, have disdain for the military and the state. Fascism is present in the story not to be praised or just ignored, but to help creator Hiromu Arakawa to tell a story. It's a feature of the military state which is unambiguously framed as being in the wrong, in a way in which many real-world historical and present-day nations have been wrong. I'm about to speak pretty critically on Attack on Titan, an anime many people, including myself, enjoy. Please keep in mind that I believe you're welcome to enjoy problematic media. Like FMA, Attack on Titan also portrays a fascist nation. In fact, it shows at least two. Both the Eldian nation within the walls and its unknown enemy Marley are fascist states. The military rules society within the walls and sacrifices 20% of the population in the start of the show to reduce food shortages, favoring the upper classes living more toward the core of the nation. Marley forces the Eldians within its borders to live in ghettos. It metes out cruel and unusual punishments against them, experiments on them, brainwashes them, and is actively working to exterminate their race. These nations are in the wrong, the story knows that, but I can't speak to the intentions of the creator, Hajime Isayama. I try to be charitable, and maybe he means well, but he's shown the heroes engaging in anti-democratic behavior against the villainous fascists without challenging it enough, and he's shown a favorable view of Count Akiyama Yoshifuru, who committed war crimes in Korea as a general in the fascist war machine of the Empire of Japan. Is the story setting out to condemn fascism, as FMA does? Maybe, who knows. Intention matters, but so do results. And the end result, regardless of intention, is a manga/anime that either fails to do this or doesn't even try. The end result is that it doesn't handle the topic of fascism as well as FMA does. Fascists are some of the worst people in Attack on Titan, but the story leaves the door open, cracked to fascism, to fascists entering the fandom, whereas FMA leaves that door shut. You could squeeze in and read a pro-fascist message in Attack on Titan, but Fullmetal Alchemist's story is openly hostile to fascist interpretation. Creators cannot be held responsible for every audience reaction to their work. A lot of fascists, neo-Nazis, alt-right, take your pick, in the anime fandom do gravitate around Attack on Titan. It's attracted a toxic section of fandoms. To be fair, all fandoms have toxic spots. I personally doubt Isayama set out to pull in a crowd of Nazis, but it happened. No matter what, he did not deserve the death threats he got for his views on the Count. I don't hold him responsible for all the views of his fans, I don't do that with any creator, but I'm not going to praise him and say that he has made a healthy portrayal of fascism in his work. Because while the fact that a creator cannot be held responsible for how their audience responds to their work is true, that doesn't just wash their hands clean. It doesn't just let them off the hook. It actually makes it all the more important for them to be responsible in the first place when they release their work into the world. Because they're unleashing something that could be used for anything. Once you put out a manga, anime, painting, song, movie, whatever, any form of art, it's out there, and you can't put it back in the box.
What's in the box?
Attack on Titan has some troubling allegory, and not just with good guy General Pixis taking inspiration from the Count, who murdered his way across Korea. The allegory for the Eldians in Marley and Judaism in Europe is handled poorly. Just Right put out a rather interesting video essay on Attack on Titan and allegory in March. It's been taken down by a bogus copyright claim, but we recommend you check out the channel anyways. In any case, Attack on Titan cannot definitively be said to be a story dedicated to glorifying fascism or just to making it look cool. Probably. But it kind of does. That's what the end result is. It's about friends working together to slay titans, and it has a ton of gore with Game of Thronesian body counts among the cast. And it's a story that doesn't set up the same barriers of entry Fullmetal Alchemist does to fascists becoming fans and reading their ideology into the work. Fascism is bad, fascist enemies are bad, but do a little fascism yourself and you can beat them. Set out to kill every human being who isn't a member of your own race, and you can beat them. I guess that's the message. Another anime I have noted with a similar far-right-wing fanbase is the saga of Tanya the Evil, a story both of us here at Factually Fictitious personally quite enjoy. We're fans, we're not trying to take a dump on Tanya or its fandom. We enjoy this entertaining fantasy isekai series with strategic combat. We enjoy the realistic integration of magic into historical warfare. And sometimes it's just fun to have an openly ruthless, evil tactician as the protagonist of a series. In this story, a Japanese man working middle management in the present day is killed, and Being X, a god, is offended by his impiety and impudence and sends him to another world in a World War-style conflict. He ends up in the body of a little girl named Tanya, and she has magic. This country is an alternate version of Germany, more akin to it in World War I. It's not as evil as Nazi Germany. Tanya is out to protect herself and is very underhanded, not above causing civilian deaths, and even writing a treatise on how to legally get away with it.
Mothers, what is wrong with Tanya?
Tanya, oh my God, Tanya, look at me, Tanya, my Tanya, look at me.
She's this cute little girl playing the role of a proper little nationalist, while getting ahead using knowledge of battles and wars from our world, as well as the actions and writings of literal fascists. She gets ahead with fascism. Tanya is clearly evil, and she's shown to be a fascist. So you might think the story is hostile to fascism. It certainly means to be by virtue of making the most evil character the most fascistic. But the door isn't closed to keep fascist fans out. It's wide open. There are no barriers. Tanya's evil, but she's the main character, the one you root for. Ideally, you really shouldn't be rooting for her or Being X in this situation, but it's hard not to be pulling for the main character of a show, one who is fun to watch. Being X is a constant obstacle to her, setting up situations to trip her up, and being underhanded and vicious, being a good little fascist, it gets her through these predicaments time and again. She's like a lowly Rick Sanchez, too clever for lasting humiliation, and too smart to be held back by obstacles.
Can't argue with that.
According to this story, fascism works, as unpalatable as it might be. And the country would win the war if it just listened to her and went full fascist. Meanwhile, in the real world, fascism is a deeply corrupt and self-destructive way to run a government. It either burns out quickly or slowly collapses like me under the weight of Hot Topic purchases at the mall. Being evil is Tanya's get-out-of-jail-free card again and again. She isn't challenged by a moral authority. Her Watson is a paper-thin foil to her in terms of morality. Victoria, this girl with large innocent eyes who is shocked by some of the things she does, she has this mix of fear and respect for Tanya. She's loyal and shocked, and she still listens to Tanya and follows her gleefully in blowing up a munitions factory in a civilian neighborhood with civilian workers still inside. Perhaps the moral heart of the story is Kyoya Otori. No. Sebastian Michaelis. No. Generic black-haired cool jerk anime guy.
It's that one guy.
Eric van Lergen. He sees her for what she is from the get-go, a monster in the form of a little girl. He's a slightly antagonistic force to her, but he too comes to side with her. He comes to agree that her methods work. All of her moral superiors on her own side seem to agree that this little lowly Nazi, while disturbing, has the right idea on things. Tanya and fascism aren't really challenged or condemned. Indeed, they are lauded as being in the right. Sure, she's pitted in a game with a deity wielding power she can't match, but time after time her evil gets a free pass because it gets results. Again, we appreciate the anime as much as broken cynics like us can appreciate anything. There's that Anedius Sarkeesian quote that's pretty well known. It's both possible and even necessary to simultaneously enjoy media while also being critical of more problematic or pernicious aspects. Add the Gamergate crowd to the list of people canceling us, by the way. It's not just that it's possible to enjoy problematic media while being critical of it, but it is necessary to do so. When you enjoy something, isn't it engaging to discuss it, the pros and the cons? No one hates Star Wars more than diehard Star Wars fans, after all, and plot holes in Star Trek are picked apart in excruciating detail by Star Trek fans. And Harry Potter also exists. Everything is problematic somehow, some way, way more than others. But if we can't enjoy problematic stuff, there will be no media available. I enjoy Tanya and Attack on Titan. In fact, I enjoy all anime in this video equally, infinitely more than Hetalia. Hetalia wasn't an anime for me, that's about as nicely as I can put it. Axis Powers Hetalia is an anime about anthropomorphic countries interacting and being gay. The main characters are the Axis Powers, you know, the fascists. Here they're not portrayed as evil and racist, but as fun and kooky, like the Addams Family, but with a body count in the millions. It focuses on the Axis powers, but glosses over World War II. Like, you get all this stuff about the American Revolution and Civil War, and then D-Day is just some yaoi-bait countries hanging out on a beach. The door isn't open, there is no door. At all. Fascists can just come and go among the fandom willy-nilly. It really plays into a major historic problem with media and history, where the crimes and very nature of fascist powers have been sanitized, both in post-war Europe and post-war Japan. I'm criticizing the anime here, not the fandom. People obviously weren't watching Hitalia for an underlying pro-fascist political message. They were watching it for gay bait and shipping purposes. And there's really something ironic about turning fascist powers into gay characters to be shipped when you think about it. I'm sure the voice actors worked very hard on it, and many people enjoyed their time watching it and engaging in the kooky antics of the cast with their friends, but it exemplifies some of the worst features of anime's role in whitewashing the horrors of fascism. Girls in Panzer is a sports anime set in a different world, you heard me right. A sports anime. It's perhaps in our future where tank warfare is a popular but declining sport for high school girls. Owarai Academy returns to tankery after shutting down the program years ago. The new team collects whatever tanks they can find abandoned around their community, which is on a ship, by the way. They have tanks from multiple sides of World War I and World War II. The anime is not about fascism, but there are German tanks on the school's team, German terminology is used, and one of the tanks is driven by former members of the History Club with a different theme after a major historical figure. One of the members is nicknamed Erwin after General Erwin Rommel, a German military theorist influential in both World War I and World War II, an essential figure of the myth of the clean Wehrmacht. Though considered chivalrous and not deeply invested in Nazi ideology, he was a personal friend of Adolf Hitler, and he served in the Nazi war machine, where he did turn in and kill minorities. Each school in the series is based on a country in one of the world wars. The final battle of the tournament and of the series is against a school whose tanks, tactics, and aesthetics are drawn from the Wehrmacht. And this school's team is portrayed as antagonists throughout the series in all but one situation. Girls in Panzer certainly does not glorify fascism. It's not really about fascism at all, but militarism is another story. Rather than being glorified, it's made light. Militaristic aesthetics are made cutesy, and there's a lot of overlap between aesthetics of militarism and fascism. The show features gratuitous German, but we must keep in mind that German does not equal Nazi. Certainly militarism could have been portrayed quite a bit better in this series, but it would be a bad faith argument to say that it shows fascism in a positive light. That's not the argument that I'm making here. We have something here we call cuddly fascism. These fascists, Tanya, Germany, Italy, they're not so bad, they're cute, they're fun. Fascism is a harmless thing of the past, right? It couldn't still be around today.
We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country.
No one is going to see a cute character with a fascist aesthetic or ideology, or whatever Italy is, and suddenly become a fascist themselves. But over time, numerous fascistic portrayals can make it seem like not that big a deal, or even cool. And therein lies the problem, the trap. It's okay to enjoy problematic fiction, these fake characters are not real people. But every drop adds up. The image of fascism can be shifted in the public mind. That's why we appreciate FMA doing it so well. Perhaps it's a little unfair to be comparing these anime to one that is considered by many to be one of the top anime of all time. But the fact that FMA does it so well shows that it is possible. The thing about cuddly fascism is, you do get it from cuddly fascists like Tanya and Natalia, but the characters need not be fascist themselves to get pulled into it. Girls in Panzer has this cuddly militaristic fascistic imagery, despite not being about fascists. While the main school has tanks from both sides, most of them are Axis tanks. Fascist war machines. While I enjoy the anime, the idea of turning war machines used in real-world genocide into toys or sports equipment does give me pause. The anime is otherwise a conventional martial arts team/tournament anime, and I may even call it one of the better ones. One with a message about friendship, teamwork, and loyalty. Feelings that make you nice and warm. These are good things to be sure, but they're not just the domain of good people. Messages about teamwork and overcoming obstacles are great for kids, but they apply to fascism just as well. Hitler didn't come to power by not working together with other Nazis to overcome obstacles. I'm not putting Girls in Panzer on trial here. I'm not condemning it. You can still enjoy the show. I will. I'm just asking you to be more careful when you take it in and how. I've harped on plenty about how well FMA handles fascism, and it does do it better than Girls in Panzer. If FMA has the door closed to fascists, let's say that Girls in Panzer has the door closed, but there's a big flappy doggy door wide open. It's only natural FMA handles fascism better, as Girls in Panzer is playing a completely different game. It's not trying to handle fascism, it's about the aforementioned loyalty and all that. Which means it neither glorifies nor puts up challenges to fans reading pro-fascist messages into it. It's too busy showing girls making friends and learning that the real treasure was the tanks we made along the way. You can see that so much research and passion went into this work. Tanks are exciting and cool, but cool does not equal good or safe. The 1930s and 40s, with the lead-up to war and the technological races, saw many advances in everything from handguns and cooking utensils to ships and weapons of mass destruction. If you enjoy history and machines, it's an exciting time to research. One which cannot be divorced from the atrocities which occurred as part of the same conflicts driving these advancements. I'm talking about fans of anime and history here, but I must ask that question again. Could you be a fascist? I'm fascinated by history and warfare, by machines like ships, locomotives, and tanks. That's fine, but a lot of people can't just stay at that point, the point of just hosting a fascination for these machines and other interesting parts of the time period. They become invested in the causes behind them, and react to criticism as if it's a personal attack. We long for communities, for tribes, and it's easy to lose perspective and feel personally attacked when our passions are faced with criticism. The Panzer IV was a well-designed tank, a killing machine intended only for violence, but an inanimate object incapable of evil without human hands using it. It's okay to appreciate the mechanical wonder of it. Doing so, however, in no way obligates us to perpetuate the myth of the clean Wehrmacht, as some seek to do. Since the war, many have spread this myth that the Wehrmacht was clean, an apolitical organization separate from the ideology and crimes of the SS and the Nazi Party. In reality, the Wehrmacht was deeply tied into the SS, the Nazi Party, and to the genocide committed on the lands it rolled over. Individual soldiers did work in the resistance and help Jews escape, but the Wehrmacht wasn't individuals, it was an institution, the military arm of the state of Nazi Germany, one which rounded up and even executed minorities. And if individual members did show the bravery and humanity needed to help Jews escape, they were executed as well. There's no way around that. When I see the Panzer IV, I can see an excellent piece of engineering that looks neat. But when a Jew in the 1940s saw one drive into town, they knew what came next. Where the Wehrmacht went, death followed. The innovation, the delightful mechanical noises, they can't be separated from the atrocities. Both are part of the history of the Wehrmacht's war machines. Why do I care? What does the question matter to me? I don't live in Nazi Germany in the 1940s. Time has passed and we live in a different world. Sure, it's one that is born in the 1940s. World War II set the stage for where we are now. One where Nazi is the go-to bad word, from feminazis to grammar Nazis to fungible Nazis. We all think they're bad, even far-right people who actually aren't so different think they're bad, or at least they recognize it's bad optics to be associated with Nazism in explicit terms. And you know, fascists and even people who openly identify as Nazis can still enjoy media depicting them as bad. Things that portray them in a negative light still have an appeal. In part, it's a twisted version of queer fans of queer-coded villains. We take the representation that we can get. But also, people on the far right have their senses numbed to nuance. Critical thinking is the end of their ideology. In media with Nazi villains, we see inhumane monsters from a bygone era. But Nazis see wish fulfillment, something they wish they could do. The dark thoughts in the recesses of their mind are made very real when they're watching such stories. We are social creatures and we long for peace and social contracts. More even-tempered and benevolent people are prone to being forgiving and to tolerate things which actually threaten peace and stability in the long run. And fascists take advantage of these sentiments every single time they arise. They're chronically in the minority, but enough people assume they can't really be that bad, that they are able to pull the wool over the eyes of their nation. To maintain tolerance, we must be intolerant of intolerance. Sir Karl Popper said that, a philosopher with a doctorate. In other words, not some whiny pseudo-leftist on Twitter who says, "But factually fictitious, we must tolerate everything." Part of the trouble we have with this is we are a species of storytellers. Humans love twists. The villain wasn't that bad all along. We love redemption, even when it isn't earned. The villain came back to the good side. We want to believe in the best of people, even when they are truly horrible and don't deserve it. And propagandists can easily manipulate that aspect of our nature. After the fall of Nazi Germany, the war was won, and there was an attempt to smooth over the wrinkles, to establish a bond with our former enemies so that way we could have a united front against the communists in Europe. Justice came second to that when it came at all. Besides, fascism wasn't just an Italy, Germany, Japan problem. It was widespread. You had fascists on both sides of the Atlantic. It was Hitler's not-so-humble opinion that Henry Ford was the single great man, after all. I mean, he was pretty great at a lot of things, like taking credit for other people's accomplishments and hating Jews. I'm pretty sure Thomas Edison would lay awake many a night stewing in envy. Anti-Semitism was already in France and Poland when the Panzers rolled in. Fascist movements were cracked down upon somewhat to prevent them from working with the Axis to subvert the Allies at home. But the Allies didn't have the reckoning we needed about our own fascism. Good guys here in America had been fascist. The government too, in many ways. Because it's an insidious thing, a poison, like racism, which it really needs to work. It gets inside of us without us realizing it, because it's rooted in basic animal instincts. And the Nazis took so much inspiration from the US, after all, from the death marches and internment camps of the Trail of Tears, which was going on long before Hitler was born, to inspiring people with everyday American things like techniques from Hollywood and sports cheers. The nationalism that resulted in the rise of fascism was a goal of the Entente after World War I, to reshape Europe along nationalistic lines to bring peace. It had just the opposite effect, because the fascism was coming from inside the house. And where are we today?
We've got militias roaming the streets. We have one of our political parties turning into a cult of the leader. The RNC platform was just whatever Trump wants. That's an extremely worrisome sign.
I live in a country grappling with fascism. I take part in this flawed society and almost certainly contribute to the problems some degree more than I realize or would feel comfortable knowing. Fascism is alive and well, having a global renaissance. And it can come from anyone, just as it can come for anyone. You have Jews being demonized, Asians being beaten, even fascistic monsters themselves like Moscow Mitch run for their lives, threatened by the very nationalistic flames they continue to stoke. Fascism creeps up on us, like slowly heating up water so the frog doesn't notice until it's too late. Fascists seek to sink their claws into us using every avenue they can find, such as the media we consume, the things we care about, our fandoms, hobbies, and passions. It's natural to defend the things we care about. We have the passion for shows that we like, and there's this gut reaction to get defensive. But shows aren't people, only their creators are. Shows don't have feelings. And we do the shows, the creators, the fandoms, and ourselves a disservice by refusing to accept and give criticism, by refusing to be critical. Nothing is perfect, it's only natural for everything to have flaws. Like I've said here, I like Girls in Panzer, and I recommend people give it a chance, but I can also see the flaws in it, and I can speak on the things I disagree with. But why is there this gut reaction? It's instinct. Protect your own. Protect the us from the them. Good for animals, but we live in a different age, one where people can get along and our differences give us strength. But we still have those same instincts. Tapping into these instincts is what fascism is all about, appealing to very basic motivations, like the cool trap. Something looks cool, we like it. It feels right and it pleases our brains. But that doesn't make it good. Nazis had good-looking machinery, uniforms, architecture, and art. They liked art so long as it was useful for their propaganda, otherwise they destroyed it. They were rather fashionable, but it was all just skin-deep. Beneath and often bubbling to the surface were the ugliest examples of humanity in recorded history. With fascism, there comes an aestheticization of politics, a concept coined by German-Jewish philosopher Walter Benjamin. You distract the people with spectacle instead of giving them what they really want and need. It's not just aesthetics as in looking good, but the aesthetic of being good. A performance of being a good government. Of being orderly and fixing problems, providing various inhumane solutions. Fascism values order, which seems like a good thing on the surface, but here it means conformity and adherence to a social code that exclusively benefits the dominant group. It codifies into law who is normal and acceptable, and who is marginalized enough to scapegoat as the cause of the social problems which the fascists used to rise into office and now can't solve. Rather than fixing the problems in Germany which resulted in it pushing for war in the first place, the Nazis distracted the people with exciting parades and an appealing look. They gave the people an us and a them and pitted the two against each other in their minds. Nazi ideology was lacking in the departments of politics, ethics, philosophy, and economics. They had all that stuff, of course, but the bulk of their ideology was hatred and aesthetics. Looking good and appealing to gut reactions makes the people support you in a popularity contest, and it gives your hate group a veneer of legitimacy. Comics, movies, TV, manga, anime, these things copy Nazi aesthetics for the look and to apply the evil connotations to the likes of the Galactic Empire and Star Wars. Cosplayers of these works dress as villainous characters who have some Nazi flavor in their wardrobe because they enjoy the media. The Imperial officers in Star Wars are in uniforms with a Nazi influence, but they aren't actual Nazi uniforms. In the real world, the 501st Legion dresses like stormtroopers, Imperial officers, and all manner of armored and villainous Star Wars characters, all while supporting the fandom and doing good work for charity. This is pure fandom, not the work of neo-Nazis. And then there are cosplayers of a different variety. Cosplayers who don't costume themselves after characters in media which take visual influence from the Nazis, but who cosplay as just straight-up Nazis. This is a big part of the World War II military cosplay scene in Japan, as well as Korea, Taiwan, and mainland China. Here in the West, this is pretty odd and offensive to us, but Japan is in a very different position. They fought on the same side as the Nazis and didn't face the same trauma as the Allies. That trauma and the taboos associated with it didn't get passed down in their culture. And here I'm not comparing that trauma at all to the far greater trauma passed down by people who actually went through the Holocaust. The Japanese Nazi cosplay scene, I can't speak to the beliefs of the individual members, and I'm sure they'd answer my question with, no, I could not be a Nazi. As a whole, it's not about believing Nazis should come to power or were good. It's about having fun reenacting a bit of history with the canvas that is your own body. It's about liking a look in a community that dresses up in that look. I can make a distinction between that and neo-Nazis. I don't agree with it, and I have some more thoughts on why it's a bad idea. I disapprove, so please bear with me. Another fandom I want to discuss is one known as Wehraboo. Wehraboo is a portmanteau of Wehrmacht and Weeaboo, an often derogatory term for Western fans of Japanese culture and media. Wehraboo are fans of history, alternate history, and historical revisionism, which isn't always a bad thing, but here it is. They have this fascination with the Wehrmacht. They have a tendency to develop an overly high opinion of the strength and superiority of the Nazi military and may believe in the myth of the clean Wehrmacht. They champion its heroes like Guderian and Rommel. Being a Wehraboo does not mean you are a neo-Nazi. Girls and Panzer is an anime which appeals to Wehraboo. Liking history and elements from it, like tanks, are fine. Germany had a lot of tanks, and it made some pretty interesting ones during the war, and some from Porsche. It was big on the tank scene. But like I said earlier, it's problematic when liking something leads you to attaching your identity to it to the point where any criticism of it feels like an attack on yourself. I quite enjoy tanks and Girls in Panzer. I can see how it would rub some people the wrong way purely for aesthetic reasons. And I have all this criticism I've made of it already. I can do all of this at the same time. It's totally possible to consume and enjoy media, and to also critique it. Nazi cosplay and Wehraboo are two scenes which are not for me, to put it softly. Both make me uncomfortable, and while I try not to be judgmental, I am here on YouTube, so I'm going to make a video and judge away. The thing is, when we enjoy history and take part in communities which appreciate it, we must remember that it isn't all fiction. It's a real thing which actually happened, with real human suffering. And especially people who were educated in or who work in the field of history, there's this responsibility to convey the bad as well as the good. We can't bring back those who have been killed, but how we remember the past and how we tell stories, fiction or non-fiction, it all has an impact on the world and on how we shape the future. My concern is that celebrating history and things from it irresponsibly, we're made vulnerable. It can lead us into Nazi apologia and the lowering of our guard. Bad actors can use this as an avenue to come in and take advantage of us in our communities, our fandoms, and our hobbies. And it can work like camouflage, like zebra stripes. When we have Nazi imagery online, neo-Nazis can use it as cover to blend in with us. Even if they don't succeed in turning us, even if we're too vigilant for them to get to us, they can use us as cover to reach others online who don't see through them. They find plausible deniability. Oh, I'm not a bigot, I'm just a Wehraboo neo-nationalist identitarian, or whatever they call themselves in present year. They can take encouragement from us, get emboldened by seeing their imagery normalized in public spaces, and people who are Jewish, for example, have to keep their guard up around us. People victimized by Nazis need to keep an eye out for their own protection. If you see someone who looks like a Nazi, walks like a Nazi, and quacks like a Nazi, you just see a Nazi. Fandoms and subcultures must be vigilant to prevent infiltration by neo-Nazis. The alt-right, whatever you want to call them. These groups are targeted so they can recruit and radicalize others, particularly young white guys. They even do it with communities that they consider degenerate, because that enables them to divide and conquer. These communities, in today's age, meet easily online, with people from all around the world coming together, extending the reach of possible friendships, while also extending the reach of bad actors. Many of the members are young, disillusioned, disenfranchised, and looking to find a community they can connect to. And there are predators out there looking to take advantage of ordinary, well-meaning people to spread their hateful ideology. People who may not be fascist, but who could be. Großenpanzer isn't going to make anyone a Nazi. A fondness for the machinery of the Wehrmacht isn't going to do it either. But if we aren't careful, if we refuse to acknowledge the imperfection and the problematic elements of the things we love, we can open up a blind spot that will allow malicious people and groups to take advantage of us. That's the danger. In Germany, there was a process of denazification after the war, a deeply flawed one, but it was there. Japan was a different story. It was occupied solely by the United States, and whitewashing Japanese war crimes was a routine part of the US agenda. Japan was close to China and the USSR, rising communist powers. We wanted to focus on how we in Japan were similar so we could make friends with them and be allies against this possible enemy. There wasn't a proper reckoning for the mistakes Japan made and the atrocities committed under Japanese fascism. And after the occupation ended, we still maintained a heavy influence. While anime has roots predating the war, it also has roots in Japanese propaganda during the war, and the industry really blew up in post-war years, in a recovering fascist nation shaped by another rather fascist nation that had conquered it. It's an industry which the government today sees as an asset and soft power to shape the global image of Japan. Ever since the war, the state hasn't wanted to educate children on the crimes of the nation, or own up to what it had done in the war. This isn't uniquely Japanese. American schools don't want to talk about our own war crimes either. Nationalism has persisted in Japan for decades. The Conservative Party is running the show now and deciding how kids are educated. Young people feel lost in this world and aren't being given the full story of their history. Clinging to national identity and stylish aesthetics gives them some sense of community, a place where they feel like they belong. And they're easily led astray in the process. Fans in the West take in this Japanese media and serve to soften the image of Japanese nationalism on the far right in Japan. We like to think that it could never happen here, that it could never happen again. But it did happen. It's possible. And things don't need to get as bad as they once were to still be bad. It's best to guard ourselves and our fandoms from individuals who would seek to corrupt us and use our abilities of outreach and connection to harm others. It protects all of us, and it's just one of the ways we can do our part in preventing things from getting as bad as they could become. The anime fandom is about having fun. I really like some problematic anime like Großenpanzer and Saga of Tanya the Evil, but I'm not afraid to criticize the problematic elements in them or in their fandoms. Nothing is perfect after all. Enjoy what you like and have fun. You have a unique perspective in the world and something special to offer your fandom and community. Be vigilant and don't let bad actors take advantage of you using the things you love. You deserve better than to be some schmuck played like a fiddle by a Nazi. Jesus H. balls. Special thanks to DJ Cthulhu for taking a look at our essay. You can find her on Twitter at RealDJCthulhu. Thanks for sticking through to the end. Please give us a like and a subscribe, and please give the bell a big old boop. Today's sponsors are no one. That's right, no one. Are you not struggling to not get the products or services you don't want or need? Well, say no more. All thanks to no sponsors. Letting you down in just the way you want to not be let down in the future.